Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? How is everyone today? Tuesday, the 7th of May. I don't know why I keep on thinking it's the 8th of May, but it isn't. It's just the 7th. So hopefully you can hear me. I was actually gaming with someone last night and they said my mic was super quiet, which is weird because it's just a USB plug-in mic. So hopefully it isn't quiet and you can hear me and we're not muted. Seems like Greg says it's loud and clear. I'm not sure if Stuart's asking me how my portfolio is looking or how everyone else's is. It was looking pretty red. It's had some shoots of recovery, which we'll chat about in a moment. But yeah, since we hopped off last Tuesday, we were still hovering around about 60k on Tuesday last week anyway. But then Wednesday and Thursday saw us sort of drop down into the mid 50s, around about 56 and a half, I think we got down to. But since then, we have had somewhat of a revival. Whether or not it is short term, we're going to explore a little bit later on, or whether or not this is actually the start of some greener pastures to come. As usual, a little bit of brief news, some TA, and a couple of questions that people have asked me to have a look at ahead of time. But as always, if you have any questions, then please feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will check them out as we go. Right, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so Bitcoin, as I mentioned, this is on the 12-hour chart here. We had that drop all the way back down. As it got down, 56 and a half before we kind of saw a nice little rally up to the upside. And I don't know, maybe the optimist in me is saying potentially there might be some form of inverted head and shoulders forming. We might see it go that way. We will explore that later. But the reality is we actually have been seeing lower highs and lower lows forming, and that downtrend has gone on now for a couple of months. And so actually maybe it might be a case that we're looking to have a look at that. Bit of a politician's answer, I appreciate, but we will try and explore those later on and see where we get to. In terms of the altcoins, kind of similar story for a lot of the altcoins. I've got Casper on the left hand side, which my face is probably covering, and that does have some form of potential double bottom here. Still kind of in the same downtrend that we've seen the rest of the altcoin market going in. And if I'm perfectly honest, move that back there, you look at Ethereum, you look at BitTensor, you look at most altcoins, not all, and you look at BTC. And right now, although I am seeing a potential double bottom on Casper, the rest of the markets are not really showing any kind of bottoming pattern that I'd be happy with. And so my general feeling is that most altcoins are just going to follow what BTC and Ethereum do. And if that's the case, then maybe now isn't the time to potentially going all in. Let's jump on to some news. I'm going to try and get that out of the way as quick as we can and then just focus on everything else. Now, when we were live last week, this was happening. CZ was being sentenced, and actually as I was live, he was sentenced to 4 months in prison. I didn't mention it at the time because I wasn't aware of it until literally clicked off the call. So unless you've slept under a rock for the last week, CZ is to serve 4 months in prison after his plea deal has been, I was going to say approved. I don't know what the legal term is, but after it's been sentenced, yeah. So, former Binance CEO. Whether or not you love him or hate him, I think he is. I don't know. We're not making a martyr out of him yet. An important character in the crypto space. And I think, whether or not he manipulated some of the prices at the back end of the 2021 bull market, I'm not really there to talk about. But I think he was someone that was definitely a champion for this space and brought it forward. And yeah, he'll be out in absolutely no time whatsoever. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he gets into next. Again, not really want to spend too much time on this, but we talked about it for the last couple of weeks. So we've got the Hong Kong spot Bitcoin Ethereum ETFs, which we're going to save us apparently. And I think it's fair to say that it hasn't had the wow factor that the US ETFs had. Put it this way. Just prior to the US ETFs, I was researching absolutely everything I could about it. I was trying to just understand how ETFs work, how the whole US system works, who's going to be the entities, what they're doing with it. A lot of effort went into it. I was excited around it, and I thought it's a pretty big thing. I've not looked into the Hong Kong spot Bitcoin or Ethereum ETFs at all, really, except to see that it's kind of struggling to garner the levels of interest that we saw in the US. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a failure and it's not going to work in the future, but I think this is much more of a slow burn. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But $22.5 million worth of inflows in the first 7 days. Yeah, not a huge amount when you think about we crossed 10 billion in 6 weeks with the US spot Bitcoin ETFs. SEC, so moving more to talking about the United States ETFs and the spot Ethereum ETF. Well, this was inevitable, wasn't it? I think we've kind of already said that, but the SEC has delayed their decision that was due this month on the Ethereum spot ETF until the next deadline, which is July the 5th. Now, I think this is the second deadline, and as we kind of went through with the whole Bitcoin spot ETF process, there's 3 deadlines before the final one, so effectively got a couple of bites at the cherry left of this one. But ultimately, there's still that huge question, which the SEC can't answer. They think they have an answer, but no one's actually been able to tell them that's the case. And what is a security? Is Ethereum a security? Are the 76 other cryptos that they've named as securities actually going to be securities? And for me, until that decision is finalized and made, then there won't be a spot ETF. I think this will go down to the wire. And if we haven't got that decision, neck on the line, I'm going to say that it's just rejected and they start the process again. And on that note, SEC are trying to stir up the old honeypot again. They've issued a Wells notice to Robinhood. Now, if people aren't aware of what a Wells notice is, effectively that's just a heads up, if you will, to let you know that some enforcement action will be taken against you. So the United States SEC Commission has issued a Wells notice to a popular trading platform, Robinhood. I've never actually used Robinhood. Not felt the need to, but I know during the last bull run it was very popular, not just with cryptos, but also with Wall Street Bets and GameStonk and all that kind of stuff. Is where it gained its notoriety. But anyway, we did see a little bit of a tumble with Robinhood's share price. But for me, this is just another one of the SEC just floundering around, just trying to, throw accusation after accusation, make something stick. And we haven't really had one of these, certainly with a noticeable company for a while. And again, I'm not even sure we've ever seen some genuine success with the SEC actually taking these Wells notices into enforcement action and forward. So I kind of take it as, I wouldn't say a joke because it's obviously a serious matter, but it doesn't necessarily concern me too much. We start to see some of these ones that are still live actually go against crypto industries. We may start to stand up and take notice, but right now, this just feels like an empty threat. I might live to regret those words, obviously, but since I don't use Robinhood, not going to affect me. But yeah, that one's come about as well. I didn't really pick anything up major from the news other than that, and certainly within the markets, and so from a news announcement, it's pretty quiet week this week. We obviously had the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, which did cause a little bit of turmoil in and around the markets, but we then saw that recovery on Friday. So the typical kind of turmoil we get in and around those sort of things. Anyway, let's get past the news. 8 minutes, done that one in record time, I think. I want to move on to Bitcoin. Let's talk about whether or not we are starting to see some green roots growing. Well, last week we had the end of the month, and so I thought, right, let's start here. Let's actually have a look at the Bitcoin monthly returns. And so first month in 7 months, we've actually now finally seen a red month close, with April down 15%, which doesn't necessarily tell the full story of the fall that we had, which we'll look a little bit later on. But ultimately, we have finally seen a pullback. Now, 15%, yeah, not the best, not the worst, but you look, September 4%, October 30, November 9, December 12, January pretty much even, February talking 44, and March 17%. So in the 7 months preceding that, we saw some incredible gains through BTC. And as I say, it was about time that we were overdue. Whether or not it was about time, that makes me sound like I wanted it, a pullback, and we got it. And then everyone's gone into, and I've talked about this before, sell in May, go away. And actually, if you look at recent history, May is not a particularly good month. Last 3 years, even in 2021 during the bull market, we had a 35% drop. 2022, it was a bear market. We expect every month's pretty much going to be a drop there. And 2023, when it was, we were at the start of the bull market, we saw a bit of a pullback. So Local history kind of suggests that May not exactly being the best, but actually, when you look at it across the board, the average is +7, and we're kind of split almost 50-50 in green months to red months. And so right now, I'm not really taking too much from that, especially only being a week into it. But yeah, definitely something to have a look at and try and see where we're going. And again, that whole, well, this is going to tie into a bit of a narrative that we're going to talk about, which is, a period of potential accumulation ranging for, weeks to months before sort of building off onto that. And whether or not that's a bullish thing or whether or not people are just going to get bored and actually will ultimately, going to bleed out slowly within that. Well, we'll look at that as we go through. Just seeing if there's anything else in the chat. Nothing there, but just hi to everyone that's joined us. And then fear and greed index. I mean, this thing's broken to me because I didn't look at it for a couple of days over the weekend. When I last looked at it, we were in the 40s. And then yesterday we were at 71 again. So it just goes to show that, there's people were scared last week. We had a 20 odd % correction. So that does normally worry people. But I'm amazed at the speed of which the fear has subsided. And whether or not it is greed or optimism, we'll have to wait and see. I think there's definitely a fine line between that. But we have recovered from that. And I suppose that's a positive thing. One, we're body hardened to it. But I do call into question how this one recovered so quickly. And if we just scroll down and have a look at it from this kind of chart. So this is just spread out over a year. I didn't bother with a max. But you can kind of see that this, where's my mouse gone? This dipped down to 43 on the 2nd of May. That was the lowest we'd been since 22nd of September. So a good, what's that? 7-8 months down there. But as I say, it lasted 2 days. And after 2 days, 43, 48, and then 67. So it just goes to show, and I think ultimately, whether or not we do range or what has it, people have got it in their mind that this is going to be a bull market. I don't think necessarily that retail is here, and that's potentially why we weren't scared for as long as we maybe should have been after a 20% fall. And actually, people have seen that as an ideal opportunity to load up, to check the sofa, see if there's anything hiding under the cushions, and just try and buy a little bit more. And I suppose that's what some of us have been trying to do. We've seen in the group, people have, some people have tapped out, some people just have a little bit left. And for those of you that did and were able to take advantage of that drop, even if we do revisit those levels, I think in 12 months' time, you're going to look back at that one particular moment and going, that was a good buy. That was a good entry position for me. And yeah, that might be one of those ones that you talk about over a pint. Let's actually get into the charts themselves. So this chart you're all familiar with. This is the long-term one I've been following. For those of you that are new, yellow boxes are just taken from high block and their levels of liquidation or liquidation areas, I suppose. We've got the white trend line, which goes all the way back to January 23. And then the red circles are just the levels of interaction. And what is interesting, obviously, this red candle here was last week's call, this is what we were looking at. And it's wicked ever so slightly through it. This on the daily chart. I'm sure if I tidied this line up on the 4 hour, it might look a little bit better. But you can kind of see we have had that interaction perfectly off it again. It just tipped the very top of this liquidation area, and I dare say that sort of the level in and around 70,000 now has probably built up quite a bit as people like to just get greedy with actually going for the shorts when the market's going down. So they kind of trapped people, market makers trapped them, pulled it down to that liquidation area, but actually spiked it back up. And to me, yeah, a good move there, bouncing off a strong level of support, which we've seen hit probably in double figures over the last 18 months on the daily chart, remember. And so, yeah, a noticeable bounce and makes complete sense. But what else can we take from this? Well, we've had that clear bounce back up, and then look at it. This is the 50 EMA, the blue line, on the daily, an incredibly strong EMA to look at, and we can't break above it. We can't close above it, and so we are stuttering in and around there. Yeah, we've got 5 hours left on today, but looking like a pretty clean rejection at the moment. We'll have a look at potentially where that could lead us to when I talk about the other side of it. But from a positive point of view, a nice strong reaction off that support line. So that still tells me this support line is good. And yeah, okay, we may come back down here, but I'll be betting that we have some form of reaction in and around this level again. The only time we've not really had a reaction was when we bust through the ETFs, when they really kicked going and we had nothing there. But every other time, we have just really respected this trend line. So I expect some form of reaction from that, and we can take that from there. But that's certainly the targets I'm going to be eyeing around. And that $60,000 line is now, a pretty important level to be looking at. If we pull out my favorite tool using the Fibonacci's, and I've dropped this down to the 12-hour just so we can kind of see a little bit better. But again, this fall down has hit the 382 perfectly, which was confluence in and around that trend line we're talking about, and then just perfectly reacted back off that. And then we're at the 236. And the 236, okay, not the cleanest, but you can see that it has been a magnet for price action for weeks now, in and around there. There has been some levels of support and resistance from that, but generally, price seems to be drawn to that. It can't get too far away, and when it has, it's been caught. So again, 382 would be an area that I'd look for should we lose this support line. But if we do fall, I'm still looking at the 5 and maybe the 618, which I discussed and went through last week. So let's have a look at it. We talked about this dip. So last week finally causes the fear or the greed to reset, shall we say. We went below 50, down as low as 43. And you know what? It's deserved, because from top to bottom, that's a 23, just over 23% drop. And that's the biggest one we've had so far. I mean, to be fair, it's only just, but prior to that, it was 22 and a half. And we've had a lot in and around the 21 and 20 level. But that's it. We've finally taken it. It's taken us 5 attempts, but we've got there. We've had 23%. Now, I don't know how many times I've said it to you, but we've historically seen anywhere from 30 to 50% pullback. So we've still not had the big one, and we may not get the big one. Everyone says each cycle this time is different. Well, you know what? This time kind of is different. We do have that powerhouse of the ETFs, which last week, ETF inflows were definitely turned off. We had outflows for 5 days in a row. Don't have any data yet for this week. I'm not sure if it was a bank holiday yesterday in the United States. It certainly was in the UK. But certainly when I looked at the ETF trackers, there was no recorded data for yesterday. So I'll give it a couple of days, just see how that one has panned out. But maybe that one is what is holding it up. Could be a bit louder, Reese is saying. Everyone else says it's good, and then one person says it could be a bit louder. Reese, I'm gonna not lie to you. This is a USB mic. It just plugs straight into the PC, so I don't no mixer to change the volume or whatever. I will just speak louder and I'll hold it closer to my face. Hopefully, that will make it a little bit better. I honestly, if it's not this, because I've gone and bought an entire new mic set just to try and fix the problems we have each week. And if it's not that, it's got to be a ghost in the machine somewhere. And I don't really fancy taking my PC apart halfway through a call, because it will never get through. But as I mentioned at the beginning, someone did say that yesterday. Loud here. Maybe the volume is just a bit low. Anyway, I'll try and continue onwards. Apologies if it is still a little low, but I will keep checking. Oh, Reese says it's better now. Okay, maybe it just needs to be closer to my face. Lost my train of thought where I was there. Does it matter? Probably not. ETFs, yeah. So, a 20 odd percent pullback in a bull market. And again, look where it's pulled back to. It's pulled back to the 50 EMA. This is on the 3-day chart, I appreciate. Just so I can squeeze as much data in as I can. But that's an area we've not really tapped since the end of October. We're finally getting back to it. And we'll see that, this pullback over the last 2 months, culminating in what we saw last week, has actually helped reset quite a lot of other ones. We have a look at things like the RSI. It's not down at oversold, but we're trending down in the right direction. We're cooling off from a very significant overbought period following the, I was going to say January, but really the February rally that came with the buying frenzy with the ETFs. We're now starting to see that cool off. For me, that's a positive thing. It all ties in with just a bit of ranging, bit of stability, building that sort of area of price action that we can then springboard off, and seeing things like the RSI as overused as this indicator may be. Don't necessarily have to use it for trading, but it gives you an indication of sentiment. The fact that we're cooling off, we're back into neutral territory. That's what we want to see. Yes, you could argue that it's chartable, we're making lower lows and we're still going down. Okay, there may still be some further falling. We're talking about ranging here over hopefully the next few weeks and months. We really want to see this cool off. But if we go to the stochastic RSI and we bring this one up, this is more about momentum. So it moves a lot faster. And actually, we're in that sort of like cooled off section already. And then we've actually seen what we want to see is the blue line overtake the orange line down at the bottom. But we don't get too excited about that till it gets above the 20. What we want to see is just get back above the 20 and give us that opportunity to climb back up. And then, we may see the price action and the standard RSI start to move up to correlate with that. But again, seeing those things cool off, another indicator which we think's broken, the fear and greed, that ultimately did dip down into a level in which can, consider it a bit of a cool off period. So we want to see those periods in there. And I'm sure if we brought many other indicators off there. And for me, this is exactly what we want to see. Let's get rid of these because they're just eating into the chart. This is what I want to see anyway. I want to see price stabilize. I'm happy that we've seen the dip. Yeah, as Stuart pointed out, how was your portfolio? It didn't look good. It was last week. I did look at it. It's funny how you only look at your portfolio when it's green. When it was red, I just didn't even turn on Delta, especially as you can hit like what's your portfolio done over the last month. And, I was down 30%. It's not good. But then you remind yourself that actually I was in a position that I was in. I returned to a position I was in only in February. So just shows you how quickly that had gone. And for those of you that this is your first bull market, when we really get into that euphoric phase right at the end, just the speed in which things go up is intoxicating. And that's when it really, you really have to dig deep to not get suckered into it. It is hypnotic in sort of just how fast that goes up. You believe you are a god. You believe you've made all the right decisions. You've made all the right calls. And I kind of suppose we kind of got a bit like that because that, I don't know what everyone else's was like, but that January, February, and even into March, that portfolio of mine was absolutely flying up. Didn't matter what we bought, it just seemed to be working. So it was potentially a little bit of a taste of things to come. And this is a sobering kind of reality check, and I'm more than happy with it. My plan isn't to exit now anyway, so swings and lows, fair enough. I don't have as much on the sideline as I would like. Do have a little bit to buy some, but I will try and take advantage as and when opportunities now present myself. But I will be patient with it, and I'll wait. And, I've used this time myself, if we have a look at the portfolio, to really trim my portfolio. So before, my portfolio was probably 15 tokens, whereas now, we've got BTC, I've got BitTensor, DOT, Glimmer, which I may not even keep, to be honest, Near, Rose, and Render. And that's it. And I've been able to trim that down to the ones that I really think are winners, leave me a little bit of money on the sideline to now try and take advantage of this. And so I do feel that, this post-halving dip is a positive time for us. And we may not find an ideal entry. We may not get the most perfect entry. But finding an entry in and around here, looking forward 12 months, 18 months time, I think we'll all consider that this was a very good opportunity to buy the dip, as we'll be calling them back then. Don't feel like a dip right now. And I think that's a comfortable place to be. And in a second, I'm going to actually do something I never do, which is look at on-chain analytics. And one of the questions was about an on-chain chart, and it just got me looking at other charts, which potentially presented, some evidence to suggest that there's an ideal time to get this. And one of the things that I talked about a lot through the bear market and then at the beginning of the bull market in 2023 was it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. Okay. And, we will do it because, the broken clock's right twice a day and all of that. We will at some stage get a perfect entry. But generally, it's not about getting the most perfect entry. It's about getting a good entry in a logical place to buy and then putting the time in. Just sitting on that investment, waiting for the ideal time. So that's the whole point. It's not always about timing the market. It's about time in the market. And so whether you decide to buy at 63 or whether it does go down to 52, as soon as that happens, it's going to hurt. But if we get a plus 100K this cycle, that difference of 8,000, you're probably not going to feel it or even remember it because you've paid your dues, you put your time in, and that pain has gone away. And that is a very true mantra. And I know a lot of people in crypto talk about it. And trust me, the longer you stay in crypto, the more that feels. And I go back to the very first day I ever bought Bitcoin was at $19,000 back in the 2017 cycle. I've been buying altcoins, but I bought Bitcoin. That felt like an idiot for 4 years. But, you flash forward to the end of 2020 and we were already above 40,000. That felt like a good buy. I mean, I hadn't held on to it then, but it did feel like a good buy. Anyway, let's move on to the next. So what don't I like about what's happened? I've told you what there's positives to be seen from it. And I put this chart in Discord, well, sort of a chart looks like this. And I don't think we need these liquidation levels. Let's just take them off just to, oh no, I don't want to do that. Keep that one on at least. So for those of you that aren't aware or didn't see what I put, I was kind of talking about we've had some form of M formation. So topping pattern, not the cleanest, I'll admit, but some form of M formation. And then potentially we're now looking, so on the daily chart again, about that reversal. And, typically market makers like to move in threes. And so potentially we're looking for 3 downward moves. Now, arguably, I need to put this on. We've had one here. Okay, drop one. That pullback and consolidation, it's up. And then last week, potentially, could be drop 2. And that could mean that actually what we're in that consolidation period, maybe not ended yet, ahead of a drop 3. And that drop 3, I mean, it is a genuine drop. It should take us below 56,500, not always, but it should. And so what's the target? Well, for me, this is the target. This pot of liquidity and liquidation areas between 56,000 and 53,000. That would be the logical place to take it. And then if they were feeling really nasty, maybe actually taking it a bit further down, low 50,000s. Now, why do I say possibly? Well, this is the daily chart. And actually, this is happening on the daily chart. Pretty fast speed. Daily charts normally take months to play out. And those last 2 drops have only taken, 2-3 weeks. So maybe I'm misreading that. Maybe actually, what we're seeing is just a drop 1 at the moment. And we've got a bit further forward to go. We don't know that until they play out. We just got to play what we can see. Right now, seems to be 2 clear drops at the moment. So I'm going to go with that. But that leads me to believe that there is potentially a third drop. And if there is a third drop on BTC, you're likely going to see a third drop on most other altcoins. And that kind of ties in with what we talked about. Can't break above the 50 EMA. We're forming lower high and lower low. We're still in that downtrend. Now, it's not a huge difference each time. I mean, the last drop got to 60,000 and then this one got to 53. So what we're talking, a 5% further drop there. So it still is within that ranging kind of element, but it just happens to be ranging downwards. And so for me, that kind of is leaning me towards, is that where we're going? And so I've not done anything with it yet, but I'm thinking about it. Maybe not with BTC. I did sidestep some DOT not so long ago, so I have done a little bit of a sidestep there. But am I going to do it with something like Tau? How am I going to try and find it? We'll have a look at some of the altcoins a little bit later on. And the other thing, which I appreciate, this isn't the cleanest. This is on the 4 hour as well. But there does seem to be some form of channel that we're working in. And yeah, okay, it's not the cleanest. And I'm not trying to say that this needs to be perfectly clear. I just want you to kind of see that there are areas of interest on the top line and on the bottom line which have been interacted with. I'm going to move it onto the daily now and just space it out so you can see it a little bit better. I started on the 4 hour just so you can see that there was some logic in where the lines were forming. And right now, yeah, we've broken through it a couple of times, but we have had a clear rejection off this top level. We're below the 50 EMA. Clear rejection off the top level of the channel. This candle's not looking particularly great at the moment, 4.5 hours to go, so it could completely change. But that's kind of suggesting to me that, you know what? We've had that rejection there, and we're going to make a move somewhere down there. We might not get all the way down. We've only got all the way down on 3-4 previous occasions, but it does feel like there's going to be some form of move down, and that could take us into the mid 50s once again. We're having it. So what I do have on the side, I'm going to wait, see if we get down there. Now I just got to question whether or not I've got enough conviction in what I'm seeing, and is the risk to reward worth it to take either 100% or a partial percentage sidestep on some of the assets I have. I can't quite decide, especially with something like Tau. When I talk about timing the market versus time in the market, the price, I am in the red with Tau, just because I bought a new bag a little bit higher up. Actually, where is it? It's about 430, 440 is my level. So I'm either just below or break even. So is it worth taking out, or do I just wait until it gets lower and then just buy more in? And we'll explore that a little bit later on. But that channel intrigues me. And so whilst I do see there is some, signs of life and some hope that we can go through, in the short term, I'm kind of wondering whether or not we've seen the end of this downtrend, and actually we may see some further falling that needs to be considered. So again, I'm sat on the fence. If I make a decision, of course, I'll let you know. If I do anything, it won't be 100%. I'll never 100% anything in a bull market, because if I'm wrong, I don't want to be that wrong. So, I might take out 30% of something. I think I explained last week when I did it, but with DOT, I just removed all my staking rewards and a little bit more. So it was about 25% of DOT taken out. And then guess what happened? The market went up. So I'm actually a little bit under on that if I decide to buy it back. But hey, it was staking rewards. They were all given to me at zero value. So it was just all profit in the end. And we'll see where we go with that. But I would like to buy those back at a lower price. So just a couple of the analytics, just to maybe, we had the good news, bit of bad news. Let's try and give ourselves a wide picture of good news again. And as I say, I'm not the world's biggest fan on-chain analytics in the sort of short to medium term, because it just always generally seems to be bullish. And when it's bearish, it's too late to even realize. But looking at some of these, and maybe there is some hope there. So we got here the Bitcoin, which is the short-term holder realized price, which are basically, it gives you a description here, but this is just looking at what we'd call short-term investors, maybe retail, those that have just come into the market, and it's their average price that they bought BTC for. And it says, different companies do it for different lengths of time, but in this one here, it's talking about the movement of coins that have been held for less than 5 months, 155 days. Why am I looking at this? Well, let's zoom out. So the black line is price action. The orange line is the short-term holder realized price, the average price of the short-term holders over 155 days. Okay. And when we look at it in bull markets, and I will zoom in a little bit later on, generally, it's a pretty good understanding of where price likes to turn around. Doesn't happen all the time, but if we take a prime example of the 2016, 2017 bull market, you look at this, so we're in the bull market, halving happens. Well, okay, let's go from the halving, which was July 16. Yeah, every time it came down, sorry, if I hold over it, you lose it. But you can see every time it comes down, it reacts off this and it just moves back up, reacts off this, moves back up. So generally, this kind of historically has shown to be a good level for new entries, for you to take advantage of a dip. So again, I say again, time in the market is what we're looking for. So yes, it may go a little bit lower, but when you look back over history, this is a pretty good level to get in. Not so much in bear markets, but we're in a bull market now. So what does it matter? So let's have a look at the 2020, 2021. So again, we had the halving in and around May, and then look at price. Comes down every so often, bounces off it. And then we lose it over that drop after April. But up until the Bitcoin explosion into April 2021, again, good level to be getting some buys in. We go into the bear market, doesn't look so good. And where are we now? It's a very similar story. So, we can take it back to 2023, it's reacting off it. Okay, we did have a period underneath it. Can't hide from that. That's what happened. But then since then, we've bounced. And we've just had the halving, and we've reacted off it. And who knows if we're going to stay off it. But I think what history has shown us is there's not a major deviations away from this line for a significant amount of time. This is probably the worst bull run we've seen. And at one stage, we were at 26,000 and we went down to 25. So, we're talking a couple of percent difference below it. So, don't beat yourself up if you buy now and it goes lower, because charts like this tend to suggest that actually this might be the time when we see a turnaround. And it's just remembering to maybe look at one other chart. And then we look at Glassnode, and this is an interesting one. I saw someone talking about this on Twitter. So this is Bitcoin price action from cycle lows. So each of the cycled lows, how's Bitcoin performed? And there's a lot of information on here. We are the black line, okay? So we're the 2022 plus cycle. And as you can see down the bottom here is this one here. I don't know if I can turn the rest off just to clean it up. Okay. Does that now. But this is a line. When I add some of the other ones back in, it's going to tidy up. Now, obviously, we're only partway through our bull cycle. And so the red, the blue, and the green have got full 4 years within it. The Genesis only had a couple of years before we had that halving, or that cycle end into the next halving event. So the orange one you can take with a pinch of salt. We're really looking at the red, the green, and the blue, and how the current line, the black line, is working around it. And what is interesting when you hold it over this is, despite our recent pullback, despite what we've had, just look at the figures. I don't know if you can make them out. Ignore the 2011 one. Sorry, we've ignored the Genesis one. But 2011 to 2015, okay, we were massively outperforming where we currently are. 5,500% up. Fair enough. It was relatively new. We were going into what this would have been end of 2012, middle of 2012. You go to 2015 to 2018 cycle, and 2018 to 2022 cycle. I've lost the spot now. And we had 393% and 290%. Remember, that's from cycle low to where they currently sit against the rest of the cycle. Well, actually, then, what we're saying is, despite that pullback, and I had it before where it was it, I mean, this shows it, our current cycle with 394. In the last cycle, which arguably was a very profitable cycle for those of us that were in it for the full time of it, we're way ahead. That was only 297 at this stage. And so, despite what we may have seen, we are ahead of the last two cycles that we've dealt with. And so again, yes, okay, in a day's time, 2 days' time, a week's time, maybe even a month's time, price may go down. But generally, as we're running on the cycles, we're actually in a good position. So any pullback we can try and take advantage of now is definitely going to be one that is warranted. I think is the term I was looking for. And just to go back to one other chart, I'll try and find it. I don't know. I just need a clean chart. This one will do. And we've said this historically throughout, but each. Tidy that. We don't need this either. Just try and make it as clean as we can. Go on the weekly. Yeah. You know what? Let me just find it. I've got it somewhere. Saves me drawing it. Here we go. So yellow lines are the halvings, and each halving, I'm going to have to zoom in now because we're on the weekly. But each halving line, we see some form of drop, some sort of accumulation period. Okay, so 2020, we had the drop, we went sideways for 2 months. 2016, we had the drop, we kind of went sideways for about 6 months. 2012, this one we didn't have a drop, but we did go sideways for 2 months. And so that's kind of what we're experiencing now. We've had the halving. All this crap is on it. Let's just get rid of it. Just get rid of it all. Hide all. So we had the halving last month. We were in the drop. And then hopefully, and I do generally believe, do want this, hopefully we see a couple of months of ranging. Opportunity for institutions to fill their bags again. I think we just want to fill them before them. Get the confidence to come back in. And then we explode up. So I would like to see, for the rest of the summer, this sell in May and go away. Fine, go away. Just leave your money in crypto, sort of thing. Let it range, and we get into September and we look in sort of back end of the year, October, whatever other kind of cliche you want to look at. We start to see that move up. That's fine with me. For those of you that trade, certainly in the ranging market, there's definitely opportunities. But for those of you just looking for entries to hold for sort of 12 to 18 months, that's what I'm looking at. So I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with what we've seen. It might have been a bit scary for some people, last week. It's hard when it falls like that. And, then you get BlackRock or even selling part of their ETFs and some of the FUD comes around there. But buying red, and I know we chatted in Discord, some of you did buy red on the likes of Tau, getting, down at like in the mid 300s. Near people were buying at like $5.50. Render down at $7. I mean, look at Render now. It's at $10.50 inside a week. So people that bought then, about 50% in 7 days. So, buying red is never necessarily a bad thing with that mindset. Okay. I think we kind of covered that there. So, just summarize. Do I see, a rosy future ahead? Yes, I always do with crypto. And it doesn't matter what chart you look at. You look at it from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, it's always going up to the right, up and to the right. So, yeah, of course I do. But, in the next 12 months, I definitely see it. And yes, we may have a bit more turmoil. Yes, we may have a few more lower highs and lower lows that form that do take us down to that lower 50s. And it's not going to look nice. Your portfolios, the altcoins are going to get destroyed as and when that happens. But use that as an ideal entry and then spend that time in the market to benefit from it in 12, 18 months' time. Okay, let's have a quick swig of a drink and then we will answer some questions. Right, Bijan asked me last week to go over Coinday's destroyed BTC charts. I'd never really heard of this until a week ago. And that's what got me into having a look at some of the other on-chain information. So you can find it on Glassnode. You can find indicators of it on TradingView. I've just gone to look into Bitcoin to sort of have a look there. Let me just move things out of the way, make sure people can still hear me. Everything else, what's going on? I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so Coinday's destroyed. How best to explain that? Oh, they have descriptions down below. I don't need to. I can just read it from here. Coinday destroyed. So the CDD takes the number of coins that have moved on chain at a particular time and multiplies that value by the number of days since those coins were last moved. Brilliant. I mean, that just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? But why do we do this? Well, because Bitcoin investors who have been in the market for long periods of time and have accumulated Bitcoin are likely to have a greater understanding of Bitcoin's price cycles versus new entrants in the market. So therefore, if wallets that do have, wallets that have held Bitcoin and not done anything with it for a longer period of time, they're going to have a higher coin days, destroyed days. So if we start to see spikes in those, it means that smart money is doing something with it, whether they're buying or whether they're selling. And if they're selling, smart money is doing that. That generally means that we should at least stick our heads up and take notice of it. And so that reason, there's a value in tracking larger movements in coin days destroyed over time. So let's try and explain that in sort of a language that makes sense. So what they're saying is, if you bought one Bitcoin, you move it off an exchange and you put it in your wallet and you hold it there for 100 days, and then you decide to sell it, then that would have a coin days destroyed value of 100. One Bitcoin for 100 days. If you'd bought 0.1 of a Bitcoin, held it in your wallet for 100 days, that would only be worth 10 destroyed days. So the bigger the size of the wallet and the longer duration that nothing has happened with that, the higher the score. And those high scores are what lead to these peaks. So, I mean, up here, we're talking like 25 million Bitcoin days. And what you can kind of see historically, not all the time, we'll have a look at that, is generally these start to spike at market peaks. So that's when, in theory, smart money has decided, I've held on to this for long enough, I've made a big enough amount of profit, I'm going to take some old Bitcoin tokens that I've held in my wallet for a while and I'm going to sell them. And that leads to these large spikes in and around market peaks. And you can kind of see 2012, obviously it's not going to be as high. I've lost my cursor at the beginning because it's not been around for that long, but we've still seen 5 million spike right at that peak. Then we go into 2013, 2014, the double peak cycle. You can see exactly where they have happened and they've peaked again. We go into 2017. And we did see a big sharp increase in sales prior to the top, but I suppose people, this was like, retail really found Bitcoin then. So this climb was astronomical. And we were talking, one day it was 1,000, the next day it was 10,000. It did feel like really big moves. And we kind of saw that, smart money even continued to sell in here. Now, this is where the model breaks. And it's probably because there was a real capitulation moment here. And for me, that was my first experience of a capitulation moment. End of October, beginning of November 2018, where we went from 6,000 down to 3,000. And this spiked, and it obviously spooked even some of the hardened Bitcoin holders into selling Bitcoin they'd held for a long time. Now, it's hard to work out. I'm sure someone, Crypto Sleuth, can go through and exactly work out what day it was bought and how long they held it for. But we're talking about getting up to 20 million Bitcoin destroyed days. So these are fairly large wallets that have held for a decent amount of time. But then we get into the 2021, and that sort of like huge run up of Bitcoin in end of 2020 into beginning of 2021. We saw that spike again. So smart money in theory is selling their Bitcoin just before it falls away. But then it breaks. Like nothing seems to happen. Nobody seems to react in and around the November peak. Not even smart money. It gets right down there. And the reason that it's come to people's attention now, and Bijan's asked me to talk about it, is, do you know what? We saw beginning of April that this peak again in and around 20-25 million, and we start to see that drop off. So again, this normally is an indicator of smart money getting out right before a peak, not all the time, but right before a peak. And is that what we're seeing? So I think it's something useful to watch, of course, and we'll keep our eye on it. Is it going to make me change my plan? Not necessarily. Is something like this going to make me decide to action my potential TAO or dot trade or whatever? Not necessarily. But it's just one of those ones where you look back historically and go, yep, the clues were there all the time. And so, yeah, we can't deny when this thing peaked at the beginning of April is exactly when this thing peaked, and people sold. New all-time high. Of course, people were going to sell, and they sold fast. As the ETFs were buying, I mean, this could just be Grayscale. Ultimately, Grayscale have held their Bitcoin for a long time, and then they're selling to the ETF. So this makes sense that this spikes up now. I think about it, and we're talking 300,000 Bitcoin that Grayscale held for God knows how long. They sold to ETFs. So yeah, that would make sense looking at it from that point of view. Anyway, I hope that one helps, Bijan. Next one from Chris was, would you mind giving your thoughts on RWN and Cubic? Okay, I'll start with Cubic. So this is Cubic. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to have full disclosure, but I actually held Cubic until about a month or two ago as just a bit of a punt, just to see whether or not we could do anything with it. And in the time that I held it, I've got to be honest with you, I didn't understand this project. This was a full-on punt. Yes, it's AI, and it's got a lot of the narratives that we've seen in a lot of other AI ones, but actually how this works, how the tokenomics work, I just couldn't get my head around. So when you ask me to talk about it from a fundamental point of view, I still don't know to this day. It's got a quadrillion, that's 15 noughts max supply. Now, I think any given time, there's like a trillion that are available every week, something like that. It's a ridiculous amount that are printed every week. And just to give you, I Googled it because I was intrigued, but I put it in a Google sheet. So a million, if you counted 1 second, if you counted one every second, to count to a million would take you 11 days. A billion's 31 years. A trillion is 32,000 years. And a quadrillion is 32.6 million years. So just to try and give you a scale of the size of the token supply of this project, counting one number every second would take you half the length it's taken since the extinction of the dinosaurs, which is wild, absolutely wild. And if they're producing a trillion a week, that's 32,000 years. So from a tokenomic point of view, they are pumping this tokens out, and it is a lot. When you buy like $100 worth, you get billions of the tokens. As I say, it is a fairly confusing project to understand, and I will wholeheartedly say I went into this without really understanding it. It was fair launch. There's no VCs or anything like that, which I know garnered a lot of attraction. It's paymentless. It's feeless when you do transact within it, and that leads to burnings of the protocols. There's a protocol there. It is a useful proof of work crypto platform. Out consensus mechanism. So there is Oracle, so that real world data taken from it as well, AI elements from in it. Talks about the useful proof of work, which again I don't fully understand, but it's all about the amount of energy that is used and sort of, I don't know. Anyway, you can read in if you want. My experience of it, I've got to say, was pretty poor. So this is the wallet that I ended up using. And I found it really difficult to, one, send money to it, and then two, to try and remove the money afterwards. And I had to go onto the Discord to work out exactly how to do it. It's all about epochs. You can't just ask it for it to be on the next epoch. So you got to time it, how many epochs ahead. But the block speed of this at the moment is about 7 seconds. But you've got to allow for a minimum of 10. I was absolutely confused. So I was more than happy to just get rid of it. Now, I could have left it on an exchange. The only exchanges that it's available on at the moment are Trader Ogre and SafeTrade, although I do believe Gate.io recently announced that they were listing it, and that's what saw this pump over the last couple of days. So I think end of this week, it's getting listed on Gate.io. Not exactly the best of exchanges, but certainly better than Trader Ogre and SafeTrade. I don't need that anymore, so I can close that down. Close that one down. And so, yeah, I mean, if we have a look at the chart, I don't know if I could find the chart for this one. Let's just... Okay. That doesn't seem like the right price. And that one's not ready yet. Price is it? No, that one's not it. So we just have to go off the chart of excuse me, coin market cap. So yeah, it had a decent rise up, and I bought in. It must have been down here because it was under 4, and I sold for pretty much where we're at now with a price. I only put like $1,000 in, so I made $1,000 out of it. But yeah, we're getting back to those levels. This chart's too hard for me to give you any real TA within it. I don't understand it. I like to think that I can get a crypto project relatively quickly, and I still don't understand this. So, Chris, if this is one of interest for you, one, good luck to you if you want to do it long time hold. If it's just a bit of a punt and a bit of fun, then fair enough. But if you do ever get to understand how the tokenomics work, I would love for you to try and explain it to me, because I really don't understand it. I'd love someone to explain it to me as if I'm a 5-year-old. I love reading these community notes that people talk about. I'm slowly starting to think that Tau, Kaz, and Cubic could be the 3 winners of this cycle. I agree with one of those. But yeah, you just go through this. I'm bullish on it. Of course they are. So yeah, that's all I can say about that one. Sorry, I can't give you a better answer, but I just don't understand it. RWN, I've no idea. Can I ask in the future? And I'm more than happy to answer about them. Can you also feel free to put the ticker in there? Can you just put the name of the project? Because I don't even know if I've wasted time looking into this, but I assume you're talking about the Rowan token, because that's the only one I could find, but I've no idea. And hey, I can see why, because you look at this chart on, since 2020, it's had a meteoric rise from what were there 0.00039 to 0.0004 up to 25 cents. I mean, incredible. 1000x or whatever. But we'll look into where those figures have come from, what that means in a bit. So what is Rowan token? So Rowan token is, they are an energy company trying to utilize clean energy. What I mean by that is, if you ever put solar panels on your roof or commercial property or whatever, you can actually sell the excess of your energy that you not consume, I don't know, create, whatever, acquire, generate. That's probably the better word. You can sell that back to the grid, and you can do that without blockchain. Okay, you can just apply for a little license and then sell it back, and the grid will buy it off you, probably at not a great rate. What this company are offering is they're effectively the middleman. They'll install their own meter. You can sell it back to them, and they'll reward that sale in their token. And then as a consumer, you can also just buy that spare energy, paying for it through their token. And I've oversimplified that, but give me a chance. I've literally spent 15 minutes looking into this today. I don't really know what proof of generation zero carbon blockchain is and how that works. I don't know what the consensus mechanism is, whether it's mined, whether it's proof of stake based or what. So, I'm sorry, you'll have to look into that one yourself. But this has been going around since 2018, so it's pretty well established. It is just based in the UK. They do seem to have a working product in which you can buy. I have no idea how to buy it. I tried to Google to find out how to buy it. Couldn't work that one out, so maybe they've sold out. And yeah, you can convert that. Now, they go in to talk about, sort of the team and everything else, and I don't really like the website, but I'm not going to criticize it necessarily for that. I suppose for me, and again, I've not looked into it too long, I just wonder, where's the demand for this, and what's the need for the blockchain? Yeah, why do we need the blockchain? Why do we need a Rowan token as well? And if I am a consumer that is buying this, who's my actual energy provider here? I don't know. Is it Rowan Energy? Are they an actual energy firm, or are they just a middleman and it comes from us? So I don't know enough necessarily about it. The other thing that worries me is it's just UK based. So we're talking about a crypto project here, which people in the good old coin market cap comments believe it's going to go to over $1 billion market cap, but it's restricted to just the UK. And not just the UK that has solar panels, that also the UK that have solar panels that have spare capacity and the UK that have solar panels that have the spare capacity, that even understand that you can sell it back to the grid, and then it's based just in the UK with people who solar panels who have spare capacity, who understand you can sell it back to the grid, who also want to do it via crypto and blockchain. So I really feel we've gone super, super niche on that, and that just doesn't necessarily interest me. I'll be honest. There's pitch decks for you to run through and have a look at, see what they've done. I've obviously gone through these. I mean, I don't. Pitch decks are, they're for people to present. So I don't want to criticize anything that's put in here, because this is just an aid memoir for someone giving a presentation. But there's some information that you can glean from this. But one thing I don't like is when they talk about the financials, is, for the money that they raised off these IEO initial exchange offerings, 50% is going to be spent on staffing 10 people for 3 years. 50% of everything they're going to raise is for staff costs. That feels really top heavy when you're trying to launch a business there. But anyway, that's for them to explain. There's a white paper that goes with this. The white paper is, in my opinion, very difficult to read because I don't understand it, and it has nothing on the tokenomics. I mean, it has a tokenomics section, which I'll show you. So it's got a token model and a tokenomics, but this just tells you what the benefits are and how you can use the token. There's no how many tokens there are, what the release schedule is, vesting periods for investors, because we know there was an IEO, but I don't know what the vesting periods are. And that's not captured anywhere. And even when you go on CoinMarketCap, it's all self-certified. So, taking all of this into account, it's 100% not for me. I wish this project the absolute best of luck, but I ain't interested in it. I wouldn't be interested in it if I was starting my portfolio fresh, because I can't judge a project on something that I can't see the tokenomics. I don't understand the consensus mechanism. I don't know what the drivers are. No idea if there's a real market or need for it. And I don't know what the tokenomics are. So I could buy this token, and then the rest of the market, the rest of the total supply gets dumped on me a week later, and it's worth nothing. So with that, I'm not particularly interested. Chris, good luck to you if it is something you're interested in or you've already invested in. Hope it works out. And if you are invested in it and you have done some research, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are and what made you buy it. What I would say with the chart is it got a Mexi listing in... I went on here and had a look at, I tried to find, not just using this, tried to find a lot of the other sites I use to try and find tokenomics of vesting schedules. No one has anything. But we saw a big pump in March, and that's because it got listed on Mexi in March. So we had a big pump, but it soon died down. Now, it seemed to suggest on one document I read that it was listed for 45 cents. Doesn't look like price actually ever got that high. But it is, unlike a lot of others, in an uptrend at the moment. So maybe I'm being unfairly biased against this. We have had, if you look at the roadmap, product launch and all of that kind of stuff, which kind of coincide with that huge leap from 4 decimal places to 1 decimal place back in the summer. So yeah, but for me, it's just a no. Okay, that's that. Right, let's just hide that there. Go back to YouTube, just see if anyone's got any questions or comments. Doesn't look that way. Okay, right, let's just quickly jump into a bit of TA on some other stuff, and then we'll probably call that one a night. It's only been an hour in already. I mean, BTC on the 1 hour, already starting to see it roll over. I want to see what it does with this 200 EMA on the 1 hour, but I'm starting to make a bit of an informed decision about Tau, and I may need to see. This is what I was looking for. We'll do Tau first. Was it on the one? You see, so we never regained the 50. We got the lower lows and lower lows. And what I'd said last week, and I'd said to a few other people, if we don't clear this at 520, I'm going to sell. But obviously, I was waiting for confirmation. We've had that rejection yesterday, and then today, it's just, I've not really had an opportunity to. But we were already at 430, and so now it's about risk to reward. Yeah, if I'd got out at 470, that's a little bit easier to do. I'm kind of wondering, do I now wait the 4 hours to see how this closes? Or do I just sell a bit of a portion of it and just wait to go? So I'm leaning towards the latter and just, the strengthening the conviction of the call I made previously. And I'm just watching it play out in real time, which is giving me that second doubt. But if I had just had to have a snapshot decision, I'd go with what I said last week. And this does seem to be a fairly logical rejection. Continuing the downtrend on the daily, losing the 50 EMA. We've lost the 10. We're on the 20 at the moment. We're still losing that. Maybe the 200 saves us. And that's the thing. I'm only going to get a benefit of about, I mean, by the time I sell and then buy back in, maybe it's $20 a token. But that would help offset a little bit. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm leaning on that one. Going back up to BTC, so we've started to see that fall down. We've done the daily already. I think we've kind of done this one to death, to be honest. We've just started a new 4-hour token there. But again, okay, this is just above the 50. But you know, look at this green vector candle on the 4-hour. Just prime for being taken as we fall back down through this one. So again, maybe there's a bit of hope around about 62,800 and the 50 EMA maybe gets as low as the cloud. But for me, this just is, you know, exaggerating the point that we have had that roll, and we're just in almost the final parts of whether you want to call it a Batman or a Bart Simpson, and maybe we see that correction back down to take that out 60k and go from there. Polkadot. So Polkadot, obviously I did the old classic sell. I didn't sell here. I sold at 660, wherever that is. Got greedy and didn't buy back because I was looking for this vector candle down here, and we've had that nice recovery. And this one's just moving sideways. Now, if it weren't, you know, if everything was completely separate from each other, I'd be thinking, okay, this one's building a decent amount of base support here. And maybe there is some fundamental news that is coming out and has come out, asymmetric backing and all this kind of stuff I'm not going to bother going into. But big deals within the Polkadot community. Potentially being able to stabilize this price a little bit better than others. But ultimately, it's getting squeezed. We're getting close to that 50 with everything else. We are still, I don't know. I thought this might be a nice W, but it's failed to get that double bottom, hasn't it? Because we've hit the neckline. We've bounced off it. Now we're just moving sideways. So I think this one's a bit of a coin flip. But if I was to have a look at where BTC is and some of the other bigger vaults, maybe it is going to lead to the downside there. Near, nice move up. So Near has done well from that rejection. Unlike the others, it has cleared and made higher highs, at least wicked into them. But we've seen that it's closed below. But I think there's a lot more support down through, you know, maybe down to $7. Okay, we see and see some sort of reaction, and that could coincide with others falling. You know, Tau exactly falling down to 400 is just this doing that and building that. But it's good to see Near. It's now my largest holding, so I want this one to do well. Seems to have recovered out of that, and it's just building some structure, working upwards. Render's very similar. I mean, Render's now on a rip. Render's looking like, when's this going to stop? It's looking like what it was at the beginning of February. So yeah, this had a really clear. I don't know if there's been any fundamental news that's come out, but the market has reacted well to its drop down to below $7. And, you know, obviously those that were interested in it thought that was a fair price to pay and snapped that one up pretty quickly. And now we're starting to see the EMAs fan out, which is what you want to see. Okay, yeah, we may get a pullback back to the 10 or the 20, but it's had those before and it's held them nicely. So for now, this one is definitely bucking the trend. Same with FET. FET's done the same, or Fetch, should I say. Buck the trend. We're on the 4-hour for all of these. And yeah, I think this one's fanned out quite nicely. We're just resting on the 10 at the moment, which we've been before. I could argue that maybe there's some sort of double top form in there that broke it down to the 15-minute or something. We may see something there, but at the moment, that's looking okay to me. Now, Link's come back into my portfolio because you know the story, sold it too early, missed out on an opportunity. It flew too high, and I just decided it was just too high to buy. And then I liked Pith, similar to what it was doing, much smaller market cap, maybe a bit of a risk and a gamble. And then for the cuddle in a week and a half's time, I'm going to be just talking about, one of the talks I'm going to do is about exit strategies and just trying to link a few of the Google Sheets that I've done in the past couple of months into actually putting out on paper an overall exit plan. And what was interesting is the return on investment for Pith was considerably lower than what I forecast getting in with Link now would be and where Link could go. And so that sort of like opened my eyes to, do I actually need to reevaluate that? Not be afraid to buy. It may feel like a more expensive price because I bought much lower and I sold much lower than what it is, but it's still got a decent amount of room to run, and just getting over that bias in your head about that. So it's on the potential buy list right now. It's had a strong movement back down. Sorry, it had that strong move down. I think people saw that as an ideal buying opportunity down at 12. I think 14 still a pretty good price. We've had the move up, and now, unlike some of the others, we have come back down and retest the 50, and we're now starting to see the other EMAs sort of curve down. So, unless we see a strong move for 60 and above, then I think we may actually have a bit of a failed dead cat bounce, whatever you want to call it, and a pushback down. That's what I want. I want to get a better ideal entry into buying that and going from there. Taonu, I sold all my Taonu. It's gone. I tried to hold on for as long as I could. I was hoping I'd get to $4. $4, sorry, 4 cents again. But I've decided to I sold here. I still profit from the first move within it, and I might buy it back if it goes really low. But if it doesn't, I just don't want to sit here anymore. It's not something I particularly believe in. It's a meme coin, and I'll just go put that money in something else if it never recovers. So that's where I sit with that one there. Some of the others, I mean, total. Greg, I'll get to that in a second. That's a good question, though. The total potentially looking like a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders forming. Maybe. Well, we talked about maybe seeing one on Bitcoin earlier. And hey, that could be the catalyst that breaks everything. And I have a pretty decent tendency for getting these wrong sometimes. So, that's kind of the same timeline of what we're looking at. Maybe we do sort of see that rip up. Hey, that could definitely happen. And we are at a point at the moment where, it looks like it's a failed rally, but we actually haven't had that big drop down to confirm it. And until we do, and we're still on a 4 hour above the 50 at the moment, then, we're on that coin toss, which is why I'm not absolutely selling everything. And even with Tau, I won't sell everything. But Total 2's that's looking pretty good at the moment. Total 2, Total 3, similar-ish picture, bit flat this side, to be fair. Maybe you take that one instead and you buy yourself a bit of time before finding a second peak there. Total 2, again, quite similar. So Greg asked about Sol farming. So where do I sit currently with the Sol farming? I did Camino and I've done Margin Fi. The Camino tier 1 has paid out. The airdrops happened. I accumulated about 1 million points over the period, and that equated to, I think it's about 4,000 tokens. But last I checked, I don't think it's particularly. Let's just have a look. Camino. I don't know what the token's worth. Camino Finance. It's worth 6 cents. So, yeah, I've not really made a huge amount within that. But hey, we are where we are with that. That one didn't particularly work out for me, but I still benefited from the Sol, in which I've managed to buy at $60 and sell around the 200. So we'll take that. I've still got the Margin Fi. We don't have a release date of that token at the moment. I think Drift comes out soon, so I'm not actively doing it anymore because I've sort of met the thresholds and I'm happy with where they were, and I pulled it to sell the Sol. And now it's just a case of the airdrops happening. But it was a bit of a flash in the van, see what this is like. And sadly, it was no Pith or some of the other ones that were pretty big in October and November. That was a real shame, Jupiter and all of those ones, because that was when the market was really pulling upwards. Whereas at the moment, we're in a range and downtrend. And, these new tokens are just not getting the hype that perhaps some of the other ones did 6 months ago. But hey, it was an interesting experience, if nothing else. Sol's an interesting one because actually, you know what? If Sol gets back down to here, I actually might buy a bit because Sol seems to be the golden boy of the cycle. Love it, hate it, whatever you want to talk about it with. It has ripped, and we think back, end of the bear, beginning of the bull, $10. And we've gone up to over 200 now. Even a polka dot moon boy like myself can't help but feel the pangs of jealousy of not putting my money into Solana. So regardless of whether or not FTX administrators have driven the price up so they can sell it and make back a lot of the missing money or whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it has moved. And then it's been adopted by the meme coin area. And I think that's going to give it a good narrative to go forward. And it doesn't matter that it breaks the market doesn't seem to care. And, you know, this chart here doesn't seem to show anybody caring about it. And so part of me just thinks maybe I just hold a bit. I've got a pretty clean portfolio now because I don't hold any ETH. That's just there for us to monitor. So I only really have 7 tokens at the moment. I got room for a couple more. Maybe one of those is Solana. But yeah. Right, I think that's probably it for myself. Hour and 10. Enough of me waffling on. I don't know if anyone's got anything they want to say or anything they want to ask whilst I'm still here. Please do, if you think of anything during the week, then just populate the Avenger chat. I'm more than happy to spend a bit of time digging through those. If we don't this week, then fair enough. We got the cuddle in a week and a half, and I got a couple of presentations that I need to write and do the PowerPoints for and everything. So not necessarily a problem. If you haven't booked already and you still want to go, there are still tickets available. It's obviously free for our team members. And it's always a good social. I enjoy the content, but I really like just sort of chatting to people at the bar, just hearing about everyone else's stories. It's nice to, be in a room full of like-minded people. So if you can make it and you're interested in making it, but you haven't done it yet, then do reach out and hop on. A couple of boring chats from me, but I'm sure there'll be some good content from others. It doesn't look like anyone's got anything to say. And so if that is the case, thanks for tuning in. We've got a trading pub again on Thursday. I'll be back next week on Tuesday. And then, as I said, the cuddle is a week on Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your evening. If you've got anything during the week, feel free to just tag me or send me a DM. And other than that, enjoy your night. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.